Hey, what's up, everybody? Just got back from watching Poor Things, the movie, and well, this is gonna be like my review, what I thought about it. So first of all, I want to say, not particularly with this movie, but as it was starting out, I'm kind of getting tired of movies being like these pretentious. You know when you go to a museum and you look at art, and well, I'm this type of person that goes to a museum. I can go through the whole museum, look at all the art in the museum, like the paintings, that art, that type of art, and it won't take me more than probably like 10 minutes to look at everything and then just leave, right? I don't really get caught up in the art per se, because I don't know, you could call me like a person that's not cultured or ignorant, or I don't really know about that stuff, but I feel like that's what some movies are becoming nowadays, like those type of paintings but on the screen, right? And you don't pay to see static, when you go watch a movie. So like they have these shots of, like, a view of like a garden, or like just something, the view is coming in or the view is coming out like slowly. You have like weird music, like violins. They sound kind of crazy, the music is like really high, and then it's like, and nothing's happening, right? During those movies are fucking boring. They're boring. Nothing happens. The dialogues aren't even engaging. It's not like Game of Thrones dialogue. They're boring. And during the whole movie, maybe two or three shocking things will happen. Like one, two, or three shocking things will happen, right? Which it's just like shock value, right? Like impacting. Like a baby will get eaten or something, and you're just like, whoa, right? And that's it. There's no narrative. It's not interesting what's happening. So I was kind of thinking that this movie was gonna be like that, right? So it starts off. There's this dude, who's like a doctor, and his daughter. So the dude is William Dafoe, and the daughter is Emma Stone, and she's Emma Stone. She's a full grown woman, but she acts like a little kid, right? Like, she breaks things. She talks like a baby, like a little kid. And so you're kind of like, what's wrong with her, right? And then you think that she's kind of like, maybe like, I don't know, like she has a mental disability or something. But then it turns out, interestingly enough, and then like I think it kind of takes a while to get into it. The whole time you're kind of like, what the fuck is gonna happen, right? And is it even gonna be worth it? But it kind of is, because it turns out you see Emma Stone in the beginning of the movie like throw herself off a bridge. So I guess she commits suicide, and then William Dafoe tells the story of how she committed suicide, but she was pregnant. So what he did actually was, take the baby out of her and place the baby's brain in her. So then she grew up. She's developing as like from a baby, I guess, and so we see her. I'm really curious to know, though, like how psychoanalysts or psychologists or developmental theorists can maybe analyze this movie, because she is going through a developmental stage. I mean, through the movie, she has her own type of developmental, the hero's journey, her own like process that she goes through. But she's also going through a developmental stage, like from the perspective of a baby, I guess, like from going from a baby to like, I'm curious to know. She may, I don't know at the end of the movie what age she hits. I would have to say like early 20s, maybe, because according to Freud, right, there's like the anal stage, the phallic stage, the latent stage, the genital stage, right? And I think she all of a sudden starts to get like really curious about sex, right? Her father brings in this student of his, who's also a physician or a doctor, and he starts like taking notes on her, right? Like, on how many words she's learning a day, on what she's learning to do, on how she's growing her hair, and all this type of stuff. And eventually, they kind of start to have a thing, right? But it's kind of weird because like her brain age is like a little girl. She's probably like I want to say what, like five, maybe five, six, potentially. I don't know what stage. There is a stage where I think it's five in the psychoanalyst stages where like the child is kind of, I guess, like aroused by his genitals or her genitals, and then they go through a latent stage where they're not interested in sex at all. So she starts to get interested in sex. She starts to masturbate, but she doesn't really know about social etiquette. So they kind of teach her like that's not something you do in public and things like that. Um, and eventually her father's like, yeah, just I guess the father wanted William Dafoe wanted, the student to marry the girl, right, Emma Stone, or his daughter. I mean, it's not his biological daughter, but she's living with him. So yeah, they say, okay, you're gonna marry my daughter, and when you marry my daughter, you're also gonna live with us. So they go and get this like lawyer or accountant to sign up a contract, or make up a contract saying that, and then this guy who's actually Mark Ruffalo, he starts to get he starts to like get in this girl's head and to Emma Stone's head, and he eventually like incites her, right? Like, and we gotta say this, like, this girl, she's curious, right? She wants to know like about the world. She wants to push boundaries. She wants to go beyond the boundaries. She's really curious about things, and she's developing, right? She's growing. She's like a kid, but in an adult's body. So eventually, Mark like convinces her to like go with him, even though she's already like set up to marry this guy. And she's like, yeah, let's go, like, I want to go. She tells her dad, her fiance, and against their will, their will, basically, she leaves. So she's like, she starts pushing boundaries. She starts having a lot of sex with Mark. They go they go to Lisbon, I think, Portugal, and he starts to teach her like how to eat oysters, all this type of stuff. And eventually, it's funny because they get to like this limit also, right? Like he has sex with her like 3 times in a row, and he only lets her eat like one, like something, I think it was like a tart or something like that. But she rebels against that, right? So she gets like another tart. She starts to want to leave him, because she wants to keep exploring, right? She wants to know more of the world, and even though he promised, it's like a concentric circles, right? Like, you're in a circle and you go out of that circle expecting that you're gonna get like the infinity or the infinite, but there's another bigger concentric circle, right? And then there's another one beyond, like, they're all circles. So like she starts to like test. She knows where the limits are, and she goes beyond that limit. So eventually Mark gets angry with her and everything. And you could kind of see like how she's going through her journey, her hero's journey process, because she does start off like as a little kid, and then by the time that they're fighting, or like she's having problems with him, she meets this other guy who's like a cynical. They say he's a cynic, and this lady who like basically with them, she kind of starts to read, and she learns how bad the world could really be. She sees like really bad things, like these people dying and babies dying and everything. And from there, I mean, she kind of like starts to feel bad. She eventually leaves Mark, and she gets into prostitution because she wants to have money, right? And then she basically, her logic is like, we can, as women, we can like just have sex with a guy for like 20 minutes and then have the rest of the time to study and try to make the world a better place, right? And she clicks up with this other girl where like they're kind of like socialists, right? Like they well, she has like socialist tendencies, but she's going to school, right, to be like a doctor, I guess, a physician. And that might be like the feminism argument. I don't really think it's a feminist movie. It's a movie about a girl, right, about a woman, but she does have like all these guys in her life who are trying to keep her down, I guess, or trying to keep her there with her. And then eventually, well, she gets word. Well, she starts to prostitute herself, right? And it's going pretty good for her. So she's like stable. She has a stable income and everything, and that's going pretty good. Then her dad gets sick. She goes back to see her dad, and when she sees her dad, he's dying. He has some type of tumor or cancer, something like that. So then she meets up back with this guy, who she was supposed to marry from the beginning, who proposed marriage to her, and she says, "Yeah, I'll marry you." But just as she's about to get married, I mean, and there was a hint of this earlier on when this girl, like in a hotel when she was with Mark, approached her and she asked, "You're Victoria," and her name is Bella because that's the name that her father gave her. So she's Bella Baxter throughout the whole movie. And then when this woman approaches her, this old lady, and asks her like, "You're Victoria, right?" And she says, "No." But then when she's in the altar about to get married towards the end of the movie, this sergeant comes in and he says, "You're Victoria and I'm Alfie, I'm your husband." And she's like, "What?" Because remember, she's not the Victoria killed herself. She's the baby, right? So she's like in the same in her mother's body basically. And she's like, "Yeah, I want to see what this woman's, my mother's life was like basically." So she goes with him, and he basically like has her locked down, right? Like he says, "You're not going anywhere. You're staying here." He always has a gun on him. He's like super sexist. And yeah, eventually she frees herself from him, and she goes back to her father. And at the end, it's all good. Her father dies, but she ends up like staying with her friend that she met in when she was doing prostitution in France. I think I didn't mention that happens in France, in Paris. And then from there, like the movie ends. And I thought, like looking at it from a developmental stage, I think it was pretty creative. I want to see how much of that is really in there, how much of Freud, Erik Erikson's developmental stage are shown throughout her development, because she's growing, she's developing like just any kid would, right? Like she's learning new words. She, by the end, when she comes back to see her father, she asks like, "Did I have a baby in me? I have difficult questions for you." And she's very eloquent. She's very articulate. And this is coming from someone where at the beginning of the movie she peed on herself, and she couldn't even say like dog, so there is a development that goes through her, that she goes through, like psychologically, and in her journey also, how I noticed this part where like she constantly gets with like men, and these men try to kind of like limit her. I mean, not men, just people in general, because it even happens when she ends up at the prostitution place, and the madame that's like prostituting the girls, they have a process of selection where the guy comes in and the girls are lined up, and the guy chooses the girl, right? Like, "I want that one." And she says, why doesn't it work the other way around? Why doesn't the girl choose you? Wouldn't you want to be with someone that wants to be with you? Wouldn't that be more arousing? And it makes sense, but like, they tell her like, "You're an idealist. That doesn't work. Some men prefer when the woman doesn't want them," and like weird things like that, So she's like learning throughout her journey. And like the hero's journey, if you know anything about Joseph Campbell's hero journey, is that at the end the hero always returns after the dragon is slayed, or she overcomes the fear, or he overcomes the dragon or the fear. Which in this case, I wouldn't really know what her fear would be, but she, like I said, she does go back to to her home, and she does tell her father like, "I want to be a physician." And the father's all like, "Yeah, man, like take my office, take this whole place. This whole place is yours." So it is like it does do a play on improving, on the quest for a betterment, on the quest to I guess like kind of like view the world from a practical lens, right? Even though it does have that type of moral, thing where like a lot of movies have it, where it's like, she gives money to the people that are suffering, where the babies are dying. So she's like, yeah, that is the right thing to do, right? Like, she does have that like moral stance, but she views everything, I would say, from a very practical perspective, because she's not, for example, she views prostitution just simply as a way of getting money for her to be able to do other things, right? So she's not really, how can I say it? She's not really interested in like a long-term relationship or actually sticking around with anybody, right? And I know if like conservatives watch this movie, that's gonna strike a vein in them, because that's gonna be like, like I'm more conservative inclined, but like some conservatives are like really like, whoa, that's not cool, like they're basically calling all men trash, because towards the end of the movie, the people that she ends up with are, she makes the sergeant like some goat person, like takes some goat's brains out. And this universe, I don't really know, if it's like a type of in like when the Industrial Revolution started in London, it's kind of like that setting. And there's trolleys like flying around, or like moving around on cables. And which I thought, I was like, is this like a futuristic old type of setup? Like, what type of universe is this? But I didn't really know. Like the sceneries are kind of psychedelic. Also, like there's like some type of weird combination of colors. Like when like in certain moments, like the sky is kind of weird. The landscape. But yeah, this movie was interesting. I wouldn't really say you need to go watch it at the theater. I mean, it is. I think Emma Stone already won some awards for it. I think it's going for the Oscars. And yeah, I mean, if you want to watch it, I would say it would be pretty cool to analyze, her development, how her development, is reflected through the theories of psychoanalysis. And yeah, just basically, the quest for betterment, and the quest for trying to do something with your life, while you live it. So that's all I got for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for staying to the end, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.